Okay, so I've used this saw to saw off these parts. Okay, now I carefully, as much as I could, followed the outline that was there, and I've tried to follow the line that I did there previous because I'm hoping to be able to swap the wings. Now, as you can see, it's not that smooth. Don't worry about it, because you can use sandpaper on a sanding block to get that straight and that straight, and sand it back, get it straight, and then you'll be able to glue some wood on, which will give you a nice straight fixing. Now I use 1/16 ply there and there, because that's going to be where, if it gets a knock, that's where it's going to take the most force. Here I use 1/64 ply, which is equivalent to like cardboard, because it will fold around there and it sharpens the edge up. I use 1/16 ply on the inside to line it. Okay, right, so now that I've cut the cockpit part of the foam free and the shoulder part free, I now need to make a space for the battery and the radio controls to go inside the fuselage. So I've cut a piece of cardboard 35mm wide by 250mm long. I've pinned that and centered that to the fuselage. I'm now going to use a craft blade to slice along the outside of that as deep as I can, and use a router and anything else I can to get as much of that material out. I will then line the inside of that with 1/16 ply to strengthen it up, and then I will need to make a hole here, a hole there, with my brass tube to fit a snake in so that I can control the elevator. Okay, so once I've hollowed that out, I'll show you how easy it is to put a snake in there. Okay. Okay, so now I've cut and pulled out as much, and I've used the router to get as much out as I can. Use a sanding block and sanding disc to sand out as much as you can. Check with the ruler that it's all square. The other thing you're going to need to check is you don't go too deep, so put your finger and your thumb in so you can feel the bottom and feel the thickness. Okay, so you want a nice thickness. You're going to be putting ply, or I'm going to be putting ply on the bottom, so the ply is going to be the strength on the side, but you need enough room for the battery plus the thickness of the ply. Now I estimate my battery is going to be about there somewhere. I won't know until it's actually done, but I will have enough room to slide it back. So that's what you need to be aiming for, something like that. Okay, and again, make sure the bottom's square and flat with the ruler. Okay, so that gives you a rough idea. It's about 35mm deep at the back. Coming to the front, it gets to about 50, and then it goes less and less because the fuselage slopes up. Okay, so again, keep checking, and you want as much room as you can. I estimate I've probably got about 5 to 10mm thickness on the floor. Okay, and then from this point here, it gets thicker and thicker. Okay. So now the next thing I need to do is cut the nose off and get a motor and mount in there, because I'm estimating I'm going to put my motor on there, speed controller there somewhere, battery there, receiver, servo for the elevator. Okay, so I've sliced some of the nose off, and it is 45mm. I've cut off it. Initially I cut off, I think it was 30mm, and decided that, yeah, 35mm. Initially I cut 35mm off, decided that wouldn't be enough, so I cut a further 10mm off the nose, and I've angled that slightly down and slightly right. Okay, I've drawn around that. I'm now going to cut this ply out, and I will mount the ply onto there to fit the motor onto. So I'm going to cut this out next, and then I'm going to add some ply through there, under there, under there, so that it'll anchor into this and transmit the force evenly into the fuselage. So I'm going to cut this out first, and I'll cut the rest out. Okay, so the next part, after cutting out the motor mount, ply motor mount to fit on the nose like that. Okay, I'm shaping it. Okay, I've also decided I'm going to put some ply in the nose, so I've drawn a line on the centre line straight through. Okay, and what I'm going to do is cut through that way, okay, to about there, and I'll make a bit of a skid on that bit. Okay, the front of the ply will come to the flush to the edge here. It'll protrude approximately 10mm, which I think that is, but I'm then going to cut a slot out of it, and a slot top and bottom there, so that will slide into it, or key into it, there and there, and that'll give this a good strong support onto there and transmit any forces through to the fuselage. Having a skid on it will also help it on a bad landing if need be. Okay, so I'm going to cut that out, fit my ply in. Okay, so now I've cut the slot in the front of the fuselage. I used a knife to cut into it, and then I widened the gap using one of these, sanding it wider, keeping it central so I can fit my ply in. I then slid my ply into position and drew around the profile. Let's get that in there. Okay. Drew around the profile, adding some extra on for the motor mount that's going on, and that will be a little bit of a skid that I'll be putting on it, and that hopefully protect the motor as well. So I'm going to cut this out and then I'll be back to you. Okay, so now I've cut my piece of ply out. It looks like that, and I've cut the slots out for that, so that slots in there like that, and that slots in there like that. Okay, so now that will transmit the forces from the motor trying to pull away, locked in into there. Okay, so I've now got to glue that in place, and then I'll get back to you on that one. Okay. Okay, so now that the ply has been inserted into the middle of the fuselage, let me just take this out. Right, there we go. So the ply's been fitted in the centre. I've got my motor mount fitted and my motor fitted. That's all secure and glued in there. I need to line the inside with ply to make it strong. So the ply floor, I've used 1/16, and the measurement that we used originally, or the piece of card I used originally to measure the inside out, is exactly the same as the floor. Okay, it's just slightly shorter. The grain also wants to be that way. Okay, and the reason for that is so that it will bend like that. I'm not going to glue this in just yet. I'm just going to show you. Okay, so that wants to go on the bottom like that. When it's on the bottom, get some cardboard and try and draw it and put it in the best and draw the shape out, okay, to match up. That's the approximate size, 26.5 centimeters long by about 4 centimeters deep. Okay, but that's not counting that part there. And the reason why we want ply along there is because I'm going to be putting some wing dowels in. Okay, now we cut the hole at this shoulder point here, but I want the ply to be further in because I'm going to be putting a dowel somewhere roughly about there. And if my ply was to there, I put that hole there, it's not going to be very secure or strong. So it needs to be embedded further in so that there's plenty of ply. I'll be putting another dowel somewhere about there. So what we need to do on this part here is make a channel for the ply to go into, like that. Okay, now that is rough at the moment, so once you are happy, draw a line around it and then cut it and glue it in. But I need to do a channel out on the other side, so that was easily done with a fresh blade. Okay, and it's a case of just lie the fresh blade alongside some ply like that and cut in roughly about 20 centimeters in, cut it in. By doing it that way, a blade, it will keep it flat with this edge, okay, because obviously you don't want it to go that way out. You'll be cutting your fuselage in half. Okay, so once you've done that, you also need to go along this wall here. Okay, again, pushing it in and sliding it up to cut a groove in like that. Okay, once you've done that, it's a case of getting a bit of scrap ply. Measure roughly 20 millimeters in, and making sure you've got a nice groove like that for it to go in. Okay, and that is so that, as I said, you can slide the side of the fuselage beyond that point. Okay, so I'm going to do the other side now, and then I'll glue those in, and then I'll be ready for drilling a hole through there, straight through the other side for my wing dowel, and again one roughly there through there. So I will get on with that bit now. When that's done, I shall get on to the next part of the build. Okay, now because there's more weight at the front, to get it to balance correctly I'm going to need to put more weight to the back, so that's why I've decided to mount the servo at the back, and I have measured 40mm from the front to this edge here, put my servo there, drawn around it, and use my router to get it out. And I put it that way in because it's removing less material in there, plus it still allows me to get to the control horn at the top easy enough if I need to do any adjustments. So next I now need to bore a hole from here to get the servo cable out here, and the other reason for putting it that far back is to make sure I've got enough of this on the inside. Okay, so I'm going to get my cutting tube now. I'm going to cut a hole through the centre of the fuselage to get it in there. And of course I could just slice a hole there and pop it in that kind of way, but it would, I'm going to bore a hole, what I like doing. So I'm just going to get my cutting tubes now, and I'll paste it in there and I'll cut it in there. So when that's done, I'll might see if I can show that on video. I'm now going to attempt to bore a hole from the fuselage to that section there, and what I'm doing is eyeballing that up like that, looking down the rod to gauge it about there, and then doing exactly the same at this end to gauge it about there, and I think that should get me about there. So with any luck I should pop out somewhere in this region here. So here we go. So basically I turn it clockwise slowly, putting some pressure on it until it stops pressure. Then I ease off the pressure and keep turning it, and this should break it, and in the end, there you go, you can see the foam. So now I put this metal rod inside it to push it out like that, and just keep going little sections like that at a time. Now you can probably see on the end there I've sharpened it and serrated the edge. So here we go. Keep eyeballing it and just seeing that it is going where I want it to go. Slowly applying pressure while turning it. When I feel it's not pushing in anymore, feeding anymore, then I ease off the pressure and go clockwise, anti-clockwise until I feel it's freed up, and then withdraw it. There should be some foam in the end, which there is. And go again, pull that bit out. Now of course I could add additional strength once I've done that and put a carbon tube in there, and that'll strengthen up the fuselage as well. You can do that on wings as well. When you do foam core wings, bore a hole out and insert a carbon tube to give you the additional strength. Once you've got so far in on your bore hole, it will then continue to go straight. You'll want to follow that line. So it looks as though we're on track. There you go. There. Exactly where we wanted it. Well, within a so it came out there, so the servo cable will have to go up a little bit, but it didn't come out exactly where I wanted. It didn't come further anywhere I wanted. Didn't want it. So I'm happy with that. So obviously now, to get the servo cable through that, I'm going to have to take the plug. Okay, so what I've decided to do to get my servo cable through there is, rather than wire it, put the Sullivan snake, push through the hole to get to there, and now what I'll do, I'll remove the servo cables. And it's quite easy to do, although be gentle with it. Knife under there and pull, and just enough to pull the clips out like that. Take a picture if you're not sure as to which wires go where. There you go, so that's easily removed. So now all I need to do now is feed them down the tube. He says. Come on. Should have got a pair of thin pliers maybe. I can manoeuvre them down the hole like that. Going in you go. There you go. Now I'll just feed them down the tube. Pull the tube out. There's my servo cables. So now it's a case of just putting them back on again. So red is in the centre. You'll also notice there's a way that they're going. So red in the centre, brown to the outside, and orange to the outside. There you go. That was easy. So now I'll just get some glue and glue that in place. I think that just looks neater than a cable on show. I've got it there. Right, so I'll glue that in, and now I think it's time to just check my balance if I need any more weight. If If I need to put another servo in, should be able to get another servo on the other side to do the rudder. Okay, so I've finished work on the fuselage, the body now. I've put the wood in the shoulder part. The rubber band retainers are in. These fiberglass rods, I think about 4mm. I've got them out of a kite in, and I've lined the cockpit area with a bit of Depron, a bit of foam, just to tidy it up. I have also sanded and fitted the magnets in the foam cockpit. Magnets are fitted there. The rear of the boom, I've put some laminating film on there, and after a lot of frustration, I don't know if you can see it on there, there's got some wrinkles and crinkles on it. It was a bit frustrating, didn't go as well as I was hoping it would, so I've only done that part of it. I fitted the stickers and then I decided to try some clear packing tape. So I put some clear packing tape over it, and that's given me a better finish. I've put clear packing tape over the top of the stickers as well. That'll stop them peeling off. I've got to put some varnish on the exposed wood because it's quite damp this time of year. On there as well, I'll have to do it on there. Okay, so now that that's already done, it's time to fit the tailplane that we've finished that. Also we'll have to varnish this wood as well because it's quite damp this time of year, so don't want that going wet on me. So it's a case of slide the tailplane into position. Okay, fit our control horn. Okay, I've got a ball link connection on there. Okay, now the motor I've decided to go for. I've tried many different types. I can't get hold of the one I would normally have used. I wanted one with a small propeller because obviously it will be belly landing, and the smaller propeller reduces the risk of ground striking and snapping the prop. Okay, so this is a KEDA, K-E-D-A, and it's a 2834B5 motor. It's got a 6x4 prop on there. It's given me roughly 250 watts of power, which should be enough after weighing this. It comes out about 1.8 pounds, so it's a fair bit heavier than the glider. The glider came out just short of a pound. So obviously with me laminating and putting all the other bits and pieces and batteries in it and all that, it's added the weight up quite a lot. So that is the weight with everything apart from the receiver I've weighed it with. Okay, so I've tested it, I've balanced it, and it is coming out at about there, which is about 80mm from the trailing edge. So from there to there, 80mm. Now that's where my glider balances and flies okay, so I'm hoping that this will follow suit, be the same. If not, it's going to be easy enough for me to add some more weight to the front, because my battery will be sitting in there, which is a 2200 3-cell LiPo. Okay, I'll probably put my receiver in there as well, I don't know. So there we go. All ready for a test flight. So I've got to put, obviously I'm going to put rubber bands on there. This is just to show you as it is for the time being. So that's it, it's finished. So hopefully the next video will be of it flying. Okay, so thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.